Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a deep dive into one of the most epic stories in human history, the rise, reign, and eventual collapse of the Roman Empire. How did a small city-state on the Italian peninsula grow to dominate the known world? And why did this seemingly invincible empire eventually crumble? Stick around, because we're about to find out. Our story begins not with a sprawling empire, but with a humble settlement. According to legend, Rome was founded in 753 BC by the twin brothers Romulus and Remus. For its first few centuries, Rome was just one of many city-states ruled by kings. But in 509 BC, the Romans had enough of monarchy. They overthrew their last king and established a republic, a revolutionary new system of government where citizens elected their leaders. This was a game changer. The Roman Republic was built on principles of duty, law, and civic participation, creating a society that was resilient and incredibly ambitious. The heart of the Republic was its military machine, the Roman legions. These weren't just soldiers. They were disciplined, highly trained engineers and builders. With their iconic rectangular shields and short swords, the legions marched across Italy, systematically conquering their neighbors. The Punic Wars against Carthage, their great rival in North Africa, were a defining moment. Facing the brilliant General Hannibal, Rome was pushed to the brink of destruction. But Rome's determination was relentless. After decades of brutal conflict, they emerged victorious, cementing their control over the Mediterranean, which they proudly called Mare Nostrum, our sea. As the Republic expanded, it brought immense wealth back to Rome, but this wealth also created deep social problems. The gap between the ultra-rich and the poor widened, leading to political instability and civil wars. This is when charismatic and powerful figures like Julius Caesar emerged. A brilliant general and politician, Caesar conquered Gaul, modern-day France, and became immensely popular with the people and his soldiers. However, his ambition threatened the old republican order. The Senate grew fearful of his power, leading to a civil war that Caesar ultimately won. He was declared dictator for life, but his reign was cut short when he was assassinated in 44 BC by senators desperate to save the Republic. But it was too late. The assassination didn't restore the Republic. It plunged Rome into another round of civil wars. Out of this chaos, one man rose to the top. Caesar's adopted son, Octavian. After defeating his rivals, including Mark Antony and Cleopatra, Octavian masterfully rebranded himself. He took the title Augustus and became the first Roman emperor, ushering in a new era, the Roman Empire. The reign of Augustus marked the beginning of the Pax Romana, or Roman peace, a period of unprecedented stability and prosperity that lasted for over 2 centuries. The empire stretched from Britain in the northwest to Mesopotamia in the east, from the Rhine and Danube rivers in the north to the Sahara Desert in the south. An astonishing network of roads, over 50,000 miles of them, connected this vast territory, allowing trade, troops, and ideas to move with incredible speed. Cities across the empire boasted magnificent aqueducts, amphitheaters, baths, and temples, all built with a unique Roman blend of engineering genius and artistic grandeur. Roman law provided a unified legal framework, and Roman citizenship was gradually extended, creating a sense of shared identity among diverse peoples. Life was good for many, and the empire seemed like it would last forever. But beneath the surface of this golden age, cracks were beginning to form. By the 3rd century AD, the empire faced what historians call the crisis of the 3rd century. The problems were coming from all sides. Economically, constant wars and an overextended military were draining the treasury. The emperors resorted to devaluing the currency by mixing cheaper metals into their gold and silver coins, which led to rampant inflation. The cost of living skyrocketed and trade was disrupted. Politically, the system for succession was a mess. There was no clear rule for who became the next emperor, which often meant the position went to whichever general had the strongest army. This led to a constant cycle of civil wars, assassinations, and short-lived barracks emperors who were put on the throne by their soldiers, only to be killed a few months or years later. In just a 50-year period, Rome had over 20 different emperors. This political instability severely weakened the central government's ability to respond to other threats. And those threats were growing. On its borders, the empire faced increasing pressure from what the Romans called barbarian tribes. Groups like the Goths, Vandals, and Franks began launching more frequent and more powerful raids into Roman territory. These weren't just random attacks. They were large-scale migrations of people, often pushed by other forces from further east. Like the Huns, the once mighty Roman legions were stretched thin, fighting on multiple fronts, and the empire struggled to recruit enough soldiers to defend its vast borders. There were attempts to save the sinking ship. Emperor Diocletian, at the end of the 3rd century, made a radical decision. He realized the empire was simply too big for one person to rule effectively. So he split it in two, the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire, each with its own emperor. This was known as the Tetrarchy, or Rule of Four. For a while, this stabilized the situation. Later, Emperor Constantine the Great reunited the empire and made two more monumental decisions. He became the first Christian emperor, fundamentally changing the religious landscape of the empire. And he moved the capital from Rome to a new city he built, Constantinople, in the wealthier and more defensible east. But these reforms couldn't save the West. The Western Roman Empire continued to weaken. Its economy was in shambles, its political leadership was often ineffective, and its military was overwhelmed. In 410 AD, the unthinkable happened. The city of Rome itself was sacked by the Visigoths. While the city was no longer the political capital, the psychological impact was devastating. The eternal city had fallen. Over the next few decades, barbarian tribes carved out kingdoms for themselves from former Roman provinces. The final blow came in 476 AD, when the last Western Roman emperor, a young boy ironically named Romulus Augustulus, was deposed by the Germanic chieftain Odoacer. This date is traditionally seen as the end of the Western Roman Empire. But wait, the story isn't over. Remember the Eastern Roman Empire, with its capital at Constantinople. It didn't fall. It survived, thrived, and evolved for another 1,000 years. We know it today as the Byzantine Empire. It preserved Roman law, Greek culture, and Christian tradition long after the West had collapsed into what we call the Dark Ages. So, why did Rome fall? There's no single answer. It was a perfect storm of factors: economic collapse due to inflation and overspending, political instability and endless civil wars, military overstretch from constant external threats, and social decay. Some historians also point to things like environmental changes, plagues that decimated the population, and even lead poisoning from their water pipes. Ultimately, the Western Roman Empire became too large, too complex, and too strained to sustain itself. The legacy of Rome is all around us. Our languages, our laws, our architecture, our concepts of government, and even our calendar are all deeply influenced by the Romans. They built an empire that shaped the course of Western civilization, and its story of incredible success and dramatic failure continues to fascinate and teach us to this day. What do you think was the main reason for Rome's collapse? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey through history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. See you next time.